Lena Hart was 6 months pregnant with a crime king's baby when his enemies dragged her from her bed at 3 a.m. They wanted to destroy Roman Vale by destroying what he loved most, her. But they made one fatal mistake. They assumed she was still the terrified cleaner who scrubbed floors in silence. They didn't know she'd become something far more dangerous. A woman who'd learned to survive in the shadows, and a mother who would do anything to protect her child. If you want to know how an invisible girl became the most protected woman in New York's underworld, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Whoa. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Apex Tower penthouse like bullets against glass. Lena Hart didn't notice. She was too focused on the intricate parquet floor beneath her knees, scrubbing in methodical circles, her hands raw and aching. The chemical smell of industrial cleaner burned her nostrils, but she'd stopped noticing that months ago, too. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Friday. Most people her age were out dancing, drinking, living. Lena was on her third building of the night, wearing a gray uniform that hung loose on her thin frame, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun that hadn't seen a mirror in 2 days. This was survival. Nothing more, nothing less. The banquet hall behind her was finally empty. 300 guests had filled this space just an hour ago. Manhattan's elite, dripping in diamonds and arrogance, celebrating something Lena hadn't bothered to learn about. They'd left behind champagne flutes with lipstick stains, crushed canapes ground into the carpet, and the particular kind of mess that only the very wealthy could create with such careless abandon. Lena had cleaned up after them all. She always did. Her supervisor, Rita, had clocked out at 11, leaving Lena alone to finish the top floors. "Lock up when you're done," Rita had said, already halfway out the door. "Security knows you're here." But security had left too. The building was silent except for the storm and the rhythmic sound of Lena's brush against the floor. She was invisible. She'd always been invisible. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another text from the debt collector, she assumed, and didn't bother checking. The number had been climbing for months. Hospital bills from her mother's final weeks, student loans from a degree she'd never finished, credit cards she'd maxed out just to keep them both alive. 23 years old and drowning in $47,000 of debt that grew like a tumor no matter how many buildings she scrubbed. Lena rocked back on her heels, pressing her palms against her lower back. The vertebrae cracked. She was so tired her bones ached, but the private elevator lobby still needed to be done, and then the executive offices on the 52nd floor. She pushed herself to her feet, grabbed her supply cart, and rolled it toward the elevator bay. The wheels squeaked. The sound echoed through the cavernous space, bouncing off marble and gold fixtures. That's when she heard the other sound. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from the direction of the private elevator. Lena froze. Her heart kicked into a faster rhythm. No one was supposed to be here. The building had been cleared. Even the overnight security team had stepped out for their rounds. She turned slowly. The private elevator doors stood open, light spilling into the darkened lobby. And in that light stood a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than Lena made in a year. Dark hair, dark eyes, and an expression of such complete control that it felt like the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Roman Vale. Lena recognized him immediately, though she'd only ever seen him from a distance. Everyone in the building knew who he was, the man who owned not just this tower, but half of Manhattan's most exclusive real estate. Rumors swirled around him like smoke. Connections to organized crime, politicians in his pocket, a ruthlessness that made even powerful men nervous. He looked at her. Really looked at her. Lena's breath caught. In 5 months of cleaning this building, no one had ever truly seen her. She was furniture, background noise, part of the machinery that kept their world running. But Roman Vale's dark eyes tracked across her face like he was reading a book. "You're the night cleaner," he said. His voice was low, textured, with an edge that suggested violence held just barely in check. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir?" Lena's voice came out smaller than she wanted. She straightened her spine, trying to find some dignity in her stained uniform and exhausted posture. "I'm almost finished. I'll be out of your way in 30 minutes. "You're alone." "My supervisor left. I'm just finishing the executive floors." Something flickered across his face. Not quite disapproval, but close. "It's midnight. You should have someone with you." I'm fine, Lena said, though her hands were shaking. She shoved them into her pockets. I do this every Friday. I know. Those two words sent ice down her spine. He knew. He'd noticed. This untouchable crime king had been aware of her existence. Roman walked toward her, his footsteps silent on the floor she'd just cleaned. He moved with the kind of grace that came from absolute confidence, or extensive training in violence. Lena suspected both. He stopped 3 feet away. Up close, he was even more intimidating. 6'3", maybe 6'4". Features that looked like they'd been carved from stone. A small scar above his left eyebrow, nearly invisible. What's your name? He asked. Lena. Lena Hart. How old are you, Lena Hart? 23. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And you're here alone at midnight, scrubbing floors in a building you don't own, making minimum wage to pay off debts that aren't your fault. Lena's eyes widened. How do you... I know everyone who works in my buildings, Roman interrupted, his tone matter of fact. I know their names, their situations, their vulnerabilities. It's not kindness, it's strategy. Then you know I need this job, Lena said quietly. So if I've done something wrong, you haven't. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. I'm curious about something. When security harassed you last month, the guard who put his hand on your hip and suggested you could earn extra money, why didn't you report it? Lena's face flushed hot with shame and anger. She remembered that night vividly, the guard's breath smelling like cigarettes and coffee, his fingers digging into her hip through her uniform. Because who would believe me? He's been here 5 years. I've been here 5 months. I need this job more than I need justice. He was fired the next day, Roman said simply. Lena stared. You fired him? I don't tolerate that behavior in my buildings, but you're right about one thing. No one would have believed you if you'd reported it through official channels, so I handled it myself. The admission hung between them. Roman Vale, one of the most dangerous men in New York, had defended a cleaning woman he'd never spoken to. Why? Lena whispered. His expression didn't change. Because you deserve better than fear. Thunder cracked overhead, so loud the windows rattled. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. The backup generators kicked in after 3 seconds, but the emergency lighting was dim, casting everything in shadow. Roman's face was half dark, half illuminated, making him look like something from a nightmare, or a dark fairy tale. The storm's getting worse, he said. You shouldn't be traveling tonight. I'll take the subway. I'll be fine. The subway flooded 20 minutes ago. I just saw the alerts. He pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. Sure enough, red warnings plastered across a transit map. The entire system is shut down until morning. Lena's stomach sank. Her apartment was in Queens, 45 minutes away, on a good day. She didn't have money for a cab, didn't have money for anything. She'd been planning to pocket the dinner money she'd budgeted for this week to make an extra payment on her debts. I'll walk, she said, though the word sounded stupid even to her. In a hurricane? Roman's tone was flat with disbelief. You'll be dead before you reach the bridge. Then what do you suggest? Lena snapped, exhaustion overriding her sense of self-preservation. I can't afford a hotel. I can barely afford to eat. So unless you're offering me a room in this palace you own... She stopped. Her eyes widened as she realized what she'd just said, and to whom. Roman's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes, a decision being made. Top floor, he said. I have guest rooms. You'll stay there tonight. I can't. It's not a request, Miss Hart. It's a practical solution to a dangerous situation. He stepped closer, and Lena felt the full force of his presence like a physical weight. You have 2 choices. Accept my hospitality for 1 night, or walk into a storm that will kill you. Choose. Lena swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed that accepting anything from Roman Vale was dangerous, that men like him didn't offer kindness without expecting something in return, but the alternative was drowning in the flooded streets of Manhattan. Guest room, she said finally. Just for tonight. Just for tonight, Roman echoed, though something in his tone suggested he didn't believe it any more than she did. The private elevator rose so smoothly Lena barely felt the movement. Roman stood beside her, silent, scrolling through messages on his phone. She caught glimpses of text in languages she didn't recognize, numbers that made her head spin. The doors opened onto the penthouse level. Lena had cleaned the lower executive floors, but she'd never been allowed up here. Now she understood why. This wasn't an office. This was a kingdom. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire space, offering a 360-degree view of Manhattan. Even in the storm, the city glittered like scattered diamonds. The interior was all clean lines and dark luxury, black marble, leather furniture, art that probably cost more than Lena's entire bloodline had earned in generations. This way. Roman led her down a hallway lined with closed doors. He opened one, revealing a bedroom that was bigger than Lena's entire apartment. A king-size bed with charcoal gray linens, a sitting area with a view of Central Park, an ensuite bathroom with a shower that looked like it belonged in a spa. "There's toiletries in the bathroom," Roman said. "Clothes in the closet. They'll be too big, but better than sleeping in your uniform. If you need anything, there's a phone by the bed. Press 9. Lena stepped into the room, feeling like an imposter. "Thank you. I'll be gone first thing in the morning. The storm won't clear until noon." Roman paused in the doorway, his hand on the frame. "Sleep as long as you need. I'll have breakfast sent up at 8. "You don't have to—" "I know," he interrupted, "but I'm going to anyway." He started to close the door, then stopped. "Lena?" "Yes?" "You're not invisible," he said quietly. "Not to me." The door clicked shut. Lena stood frozen in the center of that impossible luxury, her heart pounding, her hands still smelling like industrial cleaner. She didn't understand what had just happened, didn't understand why a man like Roman Vale would notice someone like her. But she could feel it. The way the air had changed, the way her life had just tilted on its axis. She was terrified, and she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her, like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. Lena didn't sleep. She tried. She lay in that massive bed wearing borrowed silk pajamas that hung off her like a tent, staring at the ceiling while thunder rolled overhead. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Roman's face. At 6 a.m., she gave up. She showered, dressed in her cleaned uniform, and prepared to slip out before anyone noticed. But when she opened the bedroom door, she found Roman in the kitchen. He was making coffee. Actually making it, not having someone make it for him. He wore black pants and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd just showered. He looked up when she entered. "You're up early." "I didn't want to impose." "You're not." He poured 2 cups of coffee, slid one across the marble counter toward her. "Cream? Sugar?" "Black is fine." They drank in silence for a moment. Outside, the storm had lessened to a steady rain. Manhattan was waking up, lights flickering on in buildings across the park. "Thank you," Lena said finally, "for letting me stay. For all of it." Roman studied her over the rim of his cup. "You don't trust me." It wasn't a question, but Lena answered anyway. "Should I?" "No," he said simply. "You shouldn't trust anyone in my world, but I'm going to ask you to take a leap of faith anyway." Lena's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" Roman set down his cup. When he spoke, his voice was casual, but his eyes were intense. "I have a problem. A very specific problem that requires a very specific solution. And I think you might be exactly what I need." "I'm a night cleaner," Lena said slowly. "What could you possibly need from me?" "Legitimacy." The word hung in the air like a blade. "I've built an empire, Lena. Real estate, investments, holdings across 3 continents. All of it legal, all of it documented. But people still look at me and see a criminal." "Are you?" Lena asked before she could stop herself. "A criminal?" Roman's smile was sharp and humorless. "That depends on your definition. I've never been convicted of anything, but I've done things that would keep you awake at night if you knew the details. Honesty, brutal, unfiltered honesty. Somehow that was more terrifying than a lie." "Why are you telling me this?" Lena whispered. "Because I need you to understand what you'd be walking into." Roman moved around the counter, closing the distance between them. Not threatening, but intense. "I need a public companion. Someone to attend events with me, be photographed at my side, humanize me in the eyes of the people who matter. 6 months, that's all I need. Lena's laugh was sharp with disbelief. You want me to be your, what, your girlfriend? Your escort? My companion, Roman corrected. Not my escort. This would be a business arrangement. Professional. You'd live here, attend events, play the role. In return, I'll pay off every cent of your debt, all $47,000. And at the end of 6 months, I'll give you $50,000 in cash to start whatever life you want. The number hit Lena like a physical blow, debt-free. $50,000, 6 months of pretending. This is insane, she breathed. Yes, Roman agreed. But it's also the best offer you're going to get. Why me? Lena demanded. You could have anyone. Models, actresses, women who actually know how to navigate your world. Why a broke cleaning woman? Because you're real, Roman said simply. Because when you stand next to me, people will see someone who chose to be there, not someone I bought. Because you have integrity written into your bones, and that's exactly the kind of story I need to tell. And what happens when people find out the truth? That it's all fake? It won't matter. By then, the narrative will be set. I'll be the crime king who fell for the innocent girl and reformed his ways. His expression was cynical. The public loves a redemption arc. Lena shook her head, backing toward the door. I can't. This is crazy. You're asking me to lie to everyone. I'm asking you to survive, Roman interrupted, his voice hard. Do you think your debt is going away? Do you think scrubbing floors is going to save you? You're drowning, Lena. I'm offering you a life raft. Well, what if I say no? Then you walk out that door and go back to your life. I won't stop you. I won't punish you. You'll never see me again. He paused. But you'll still be broke. You'll still be invisible. And in 5 years, you'll still be scrubbing someone else's floors while your debts compound and your life slips away. The words cut because they were true. Lena had been surviving for so long she'd forgotten what it meant to actually live. I need to think, she said. You have until Monday, Roman replied. After that, the offer expires. Bam. Lena spent the weekend in her tiny Queens apartment, staring at the water-stained ceiling, weighing impossible choices. On one side, safety, familiarity, slow drowning. On the other, danger, luxury, a man who could destroy her with a word. She researched Roman Vale obsessively. The articles painted contradictory pictures: philanthropist and predator, businessman and crime lord. Photos showed him at charity galas, cutting ribbons, shaking hands with senators. But there were other photos too, leaving police stations with high-powered lawyers, attending funerals of known mobsters, standing in the background of crime scenes like a ghost. Sunday night, Lena made her decision. Monday morning, she called the number Roman had given her. He answered on the first ring. Yes or no, Lena? She closed her eyes, stepped off the cliff. Yes. Smart girl, Roman said, and she could hear the satisfaction in his voice. A car will pick you up at 6. Pack everything you own. You're moving in tonight. The line went dead. Lena sat in her apartment, surrounded by a life that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. In 6 hours, she'd be living in a penthouse with a crime king. In 6 months, she'd be free. She just had to survive Roman Vale. And the terrifying truth was, part of her didn't want to. The Blacktown car arrived exactly at 6. The driver was silent, professional, terrifying. He loaded Lena's 2 suitcases. Everything she owned fit into 2 battered suitcases, and held the door while she slid into the back seat. Manhattan glittered as they crossed the bridge. The city looked different from this angle, like something from a dream or a nightmare. Roman was waiting when she arrived. He stood in the penthouse lobby, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. Welcome home, he said. The words shouldn't have affected her. This wasn't home. This was a business arrangement. But Lena's heart kicked against her ribs anyway. Thank you, she managed. Your room is ready. Tomorrow, we'll start your training. Training? Roman's smile was sharp. You can't attend a $100,000 gala wearing off-the-rack clothes and holding a fork like you're afraid it'll bite you. You need to learn how to move in my world. Humiliation burned hot in Lena's chest. I know how to use a fork. I'm sure you do, but you don't know which fork to use or when or what to do when a senator's wife asks you about your family's estate or how to deflect when a rival asks where you met me. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. My world is a minefield, Lena. One wrong step and you'll destroy us both. So yes, you need training. Fine, Lena bit out. When do we start? 6 a.m. tomorrow. Wear comfortable clothes. He turned toward the hallway. Your room is the second door on the left. Your clothes will be delivered in the morning. Get some sleep. You're going to need it. He disappeared into his office, leaving Lena alone in the massive space. She found her room, larger than her apartment, with a view of the city that made her breath catch. Her suitcases sat in the corner, pathetic and out of place against all this luxury. Lena unpacked slowly, hanging her few possessions in a closet that could have housed a department store. She felt like an imposter, a fraud, a girl playing dress-up in someone else's life. But when she looked in the mirror, she saw something else. Determination. Roman Vale thought he was hiring a companion, a prop to improve his image. But Lena Hart had spent her entire life being underestimated. She was going to survive this. And maybe, just maybe, she'd learn to thrive. Oh shit. Shh. Training began at exactly 6 a.m. Lena stumbled into the dining room to find a woman waiting, 50s, impeccably dressed, expression somewhere between drill sergeant and disappointed mother. Posture, the woman snapped before Lena had even sat down. You walk like you're trying to disappear. In Mr. Vale's world, that will get you eaten alive. Who are you? Lena asked. Victoria Chen. I've been training Roman's associates for 15 years. You have 6 weeks to become someone who can stand beside him without embarrassing either of you. Sit. Lena sat. Victoria circled her like a shark. Shoulders back, chin up. You take up space or you become space. Choose. The next 6 hours were brutal. Posture training, etiquette lessons, conversational tactics. Victoria was relentless, correcting every gesture, every word, every breath. You're too honest, Victoria said at one point. When someone asks you a question you don't want to answer, you panic. Learn to deflect. Learn to lie with a smile. I don't want to be a liar, Lena protested. Victoria's laugh was harsh. Sweetheart, you signed up to be Roman Vale's fake girlfriend. You're already a liar. The only question is whether you'll be a good one. By noon, Lena's head was pounding. By 3, she wanted to quit. By 6, when Victoria finally left, Lena collapsed on the couch and seriously considered running. Roman found her there an hour later. Survived day 1, he observed, sitting in the chair across from her. Barely. Victoria's hard on everyone. It means she thinks you can handle it. Lena looked at him through exhausted eyes. Why are you doing this? Really? There has to be an easier way to improve your reputation. Roman was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more honest than she'd heard before. 3 months ago, a business deal fell through. A major acquisition that would have legitimized half my holdings. It failed because the other party's wife saw a photo of me at a funeral for a man who'd been killed in a gang war. She convinced her husband I was too dangerous to work with. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've built everything I have through intelligence and ruthlessness. But there's a ceiling for men like me. The public will tolerate us, but they won't embrace us. Not without proof that we're capable of something beyond violence. And I'm that proof, Lena said quietly. Yes. Roman's dark eyes held hers. You're the evidence that Roman Vale can care about something other than power, that he can protect someone without consuming them, that he's capable of redemption. The word hung heavy between them. What if I can't do this? Lena whispered. What if I fail? You won't. Roman's certainty was absolute. You've been surviving impossible situations your entire life. This is just another one. He stood, headed toward his office, then paused. Lena, the difference between surviving and living is choosing to fight instead of just endure. You've spent your whole life enduring. Maybe it's time to fight. The office door closed. Lena sat in the silence, feeling the truth of his words settle into her bones. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time to stop being invisible. The weeks blurred together in a haze of training, preparation, transformation. Victoria drilled her relentlessly on etiquette, conversation, the subtle art of reading a room. A stylist named Marcus overhauled her entire wardrobe, replacing her thrift store clothes with designer pieces that made her look like someone else entirely. A voice coach smoothed out her Queen's accent, taught her to modulate her tone for different social situations. Lena absorbed it all like a sponge, determined to prove she could handle Roman's world. But the hardest part wasn't the training. It was Roman himself. He was there every evening, asking about her progress, challenging her on what she'd learned. Their conversations started as debriefings and evolved into something else. Genuine exchanges, moments where the masks slipped. "Tell me something real," Roman said one night, 3 weeks into her training. They were sitting on the penthouse terrace, the city spread below them like scattered stars. "What do you mean?" "Everything in my world is performance, strategy. I want to know something true about you that has nothing to do with this arrangement." Lena considered deflecting, but something in his expression stopped her. "I wanted to be a teacher," she admitted. "Elementary school. I loved working with kids, seeing them learn, but my mom got sick my sophomore year of college, and I had to drop out to take care of her. By the time she died, I was so far in debt I couldn't go back." Roman was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was my choice." Lena looked out at the city. "She was all I had. I don't regret the time with her. I just regret that her death trapped me." "Debt isn't a trap," Roman said. "It's a tool. The people who hold your debt use it to control you. But once you understand that, you can turn it into a weapon." "How?" His smile was sharp. "By refusing to let it define you. By taking what they think is leverage and transforming it into motivation. Your debt made you desperate. Desperation made you brave enough to accept my offer. In 6 months, you'll be free. That's not a trap. That's strategy." Lena looked at him. Really looked. Roman Vale was a mystery wrapped in violence and control. But beneath it, she saw something else. Loneliness. A man so powerful that everyone around him was either afraid or calculating their angle. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always. Do you have anyone? Family, friends, people you actually trust?" Roman's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "I had a brother, Marcus. He died when I was 17. I'm sorry." "Don't be. He was killed because I was careless, because I thought loyalty mattered more than caution. I learned from that mistake." Roman's voice was flat, emotionless. "I don't have friends, Lena. I have allies and enemies. Family is a liability in my world." "That sounds lonely." "Loneliness is safer than betrayal." The words sat between them, heavy with truth. Lena wanted to argue, to tell him that wasn't how life had to be, but she'd seen enough of his world to know he was probably right. "Your turn," Lena said. "Tell me something real." Roman looked at her for a long moment, and she saw him make a decision. "I'm afraid this won't work. That despite all the training, all the preparation, people will see through you, through us. And when they do, it won't just destroy my reputation. It'll put you in danger." "Danger from who?" "Everyone." Roman's tone was grim. "My enemies will see you as leverage. My allies will see you as weakness. The moment you step into the public as my companion, you become a target." Fear prickled down Lena's spine. "Then why go through with it?" "Because the alternative is worse. Because I'm tired of being the monster in everyone's story. Because—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "Because when I saw you scrubbing floors alone at midnight, I saw someone who deserved better. And I have the power to give it to you." It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even kindness. It was something more complicated. A crime king's version of redemption. "I'm not afraid," Lena said, surprising herself with the truth. "I should be, but I'm not." Roman's eyes darkened. "You should be. Fear keeps you alive in my world." "Then I'll learn." Lena met his gaze steadily. "You hired me to be brave enough to stand beside you, so teach me how to survive the consequences." Something shifted in Roman's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "All right," he said quietly. "But remember, in 6 months, this ends. You get your money, your freedom, your life back. Don't get so good at surviving my world that you forget to leave it." It was a warning. Lena heard it. She just didn't believe she'd need it. The first public event was a charity gala at the plaza. Black tie, 500 guests, cameras everywhere. Lena stood in front of the mirror in her room, barely recognizing herself. The dress was midnight blue, elegant without being revealing, expensive enough to announce she belonged. Her hair was swept up, her makeup subtle but perfect. Diamond earrings, on loan, Marcus had emphasized, caught the light. She looked like someone who could stand beside Roman Vale. She just had to convince everyone else. A knock on the door. Roman entered, stopping when he saw her. "You look—" He paused, something flickering across his face. "Perfect. I feel like a fraud." "Everyone there will be a fraud in one way or another. You'll fit right in." Roman offered his arm. "Ready?" Lena took it, feeling the strength beneath the perfectly tailored tuxedo. "As I'll ever be." The car ride was silent, tension thick. When they arrived, flashbulbs exploded. Photographers shouted Roman's name, questions flying. "Mr. Vale, who's your date?" "Roman, is this your new girlfriend?" Miss, can you look this way?" Roman's hand settled on the small of Lena's back, steady and commanding. "Smile," he murmured, "like you're exactly where you belong." Lena did. She smiled through the chaos, let Roman guide her through the crowd, felt 1,000 eyes cataloging every detail. Inside the plaza ballroom was a forest of crystal and gold. Manhattan's elite filled the space. Politicians, CEOs, celebrities, all of them predators in expensive clothes. "Showtime," Roman said quietly, and led her into the lion's den. The next 3 hours were a blur. Roman introduced her to dozens of people, each conversation a careful dance. Lena remembered Victoria's training, deflecting personal questions, turning the conversation back to the other person, smiling until her cheeks ached. "Where did you two meet?" a senator's wife asked, her smile sharp with curiosity. "At the Apex Tower," Lena said smoothly. "I was working late, and Roman was kind enough to ensure I got home safely during that terrible storm last month. We've been inseparable since." It was close enough to the truth to feel almost honest. Roman's hand tightened slightly on her waist. Approval. But not everyone was charmed. A woman in red approached as they stood by the bar. Beautiful, predatory, with eyes that calculated angles. "Roman," she purred, "it's been too long." "Natasha." Roman's tone was neutral, but Lena felt him tense. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your companion?" Natasha's gaze raked over Lena, dismissive and sharp. "Lena Hart, Natasha Volkov." Roman's voice held a warning. "Lena, Natasha is an old business associate." "Charmed," Natasha said, her tone suggesting the opposite. She turned back to Roman. "I heard you were seeing someone new. I have to admit I'm surprised. She's very wholesome." The insult was wrapped in silk, but it cut just the same. Lena felt heat rise in her cheeks, humiliation prickling. But then she remembered Victoria's lessons. You take up space, or you become space. "Thank you," Lena said, her smile bright and genuine. "I take that as a compliment. Roman deserves someone who sees him as more than a business opportunity." The bar landed. Natasha's smile froze. Roman's hand moved to Lena's hip, possessive and approving. "Excuse us, Natasha. I promised Lena a dance." He swept her onto the dance floor before Natasha could respond. "Well done," Roman murmured as they began to move. "Natasha's a viper. She was trying to rattle you." "I noticed." Lena followed his lead, grateful for the waltz lessons Victoria had drilled into her. "Old flame? Old mistake." Roman's expression was unreadable. "She wanted access to my world. When I wouldn't give it to her, she tried to destroy me. Failed, obviously. Should I be worried? Always, but not about Natasha. She's ambitious, not stupid. She knows better than to move against me directly." His eyes searched hers. "You handled that perfectly, better than I expected." "I've been underestimated my whole life," Lena said. "I know how to use it." Roman's smile was genuine, and it transformed his face. For a moment, he didn't look like a crime king. He looked like a man who'd found something unexpected. "We're going to pull this off," he said quietly. "I know," Lena replied, and realized she believed it. The music swelled, the crowd watched, and somewhere between the performance and the truth, something shifted between them. something dangerous, something that felt almost like the beginning of something real. But the night wasn't over, and the first real test was about to begin. The man who approached them on the dance floor wore a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Expensive suit, silver hair, the kind of confidence that came from decades of wielding power without consequence. "Roman," he said, his voice smooth as oil, "I didn't expect to see you here tonight." Roman's body went rigid beneath Lena's hands. She felt it, the shift from calm to controlled violence in a heartbeat, but his expression remained neutral. "Senator Graves," Roman replied. "I could say the same. I thought you were in Washington this week. Change of plans." The senator's gaze slid to Lena, assessing and dismissive in equal measure. "And who might this lovely creature be?" The word creature landed like a slap. Lena kept her smile fixed, but her fingers tightened on Roman's shoulder. "Lena Hart," Roman said, his tone carrying an edge of warning. "Lena, Senator William Graves. He sits on several committees that regulate real estate development in the city." Translation: this man has power over Roman's legitimate business interests. "Charmed," Graves said, taking Lena's hand and kissing it with exaggerated chivalry. His lips were cold and wet. "Tell me, Miss Hart, how does a girl like you end up with a man like Roman Vale?" "A girl like me?" Lena asked, her voice sweet poison. "Well, you're clearly not from his usual circles." Graves smiled. "No judgment, of course. Roman's always had interesting taste in companions." The implication was clear. Lena was a paid escort, a bought woman, a transaction. Roman's jaw tightened. "Senator?" "Actually," Lena interrupted, her voice carrying across the nearby couples, "I think you've misunderstood. Roman and I met because I refuse to be intimidated by powerful men who mistake cruelty for strength. It's a quality we both value. The ability to stand up to bullies, regardless of how much influence they think they have." The surrounding dancers slowed, attention shifting toward them. Graves' smile froze. "I'm not sure I appreciate your tone." "And I'm not sure I appreciate being insulted at a charity event," Lena replied, her eyes bright with challenge. "But here we are." Roman's hand moved to Lena's waist, gentle but firm. "I think we're done here, Senator. Enjoy your evening." He guided Lena away before Graves could respond, moving through the crowd with practiced ease. But Lena could feel the tension radiating off him in waves. They reached a quieter corner of the ballroom, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "That was reckless," Roman said quietly. "He insulted me. Insulted us. He's a United States Senator with the power to destroy half my development projects with a single phone call." Roman's eyes were dark, unreadable. "You can't just—" "What? Defend myself? Defend you?" Lena's voice rose slightly. "I thought that was the point of this arrangement. To show people you're not just a monster to be feared. There's a difference between humanizing me and making enemies we can't afford." "Then maybe you should have hired someone who knows how to grovel," Lena shot back. "Because I don't." They stared at each other, the air between them electric with tension, and something else. Something that felt dangerous and alive. Roman's expression shifted, anger giving way to something almost like admiration. "You're right," he said finally. "Graves was out of line, and you handled it perfectly." Lena blinked, surprised. "I thought you said it was reckless." "It was, but it was also brave and honest and exactly the kind of thing that will make people believe we're real." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Just next time, warn me before you declare war on a senator. Next time, don't let senators treat me like a prostitute you bought for the evening." Roman's eyes flashed. "I would never." "I know," Lena said, softer now. "But he did. And if we're going to make this work, people need to see that you won't tolerate disrespect toward me. Otherwise, I'm just another pretty accessory." "You were never that." Roman's hand came up, almost touching her face before he caught himself and dropped it. "Come on. We've made enough of a scene for one night. Let's get out of here." They left through a side entrance, avoiding the main press of photographers. The car was waiting, sleek and black and anonymous. Inside, the silence was heavy. Lena stared out the window, watching Manhattan blur past, her heart still racing from the confrontation. "You did well tonight," Roman said quietly. "Better than well. You were magnificent." I was terrified, Lena admitted. Fear and courage aren't opposites. You can be both at the same time. He paused. My brother used to say that, Marcus. He said the bravest people aren't the ones without fear. They're the ones who act despite it. It was the first time Roman had mentioned his brother without shutting down immediately after. Lena turned to look at him. What was he like? Roman was quiet for so long, Lena thought he wouldn't answer. Then, better than me. Kinder. He believed people could change, that redemption was possible. I thought he was naive. And now? Now he is dead because of that naivety, because he trusted the wrong person and paid for it with his life. Roman's voice was flat, emotionless, but Lena heard the pain beneath. I won't make the same mistake. Is that why you don't trust anyone? It's why I trust very few people. And even then, only with certain things. He looked at her. But I'm starting to trust you, Lena, and that terrifies me more than any enemy I've ever faced. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Lena didn't know what to say. This was supposed to be a business arrangement, a performance for public consumption. But somewhere between the training and the gala and this moment, it had become something else, something real, something that could destroy them both. The car pulled up to the apex tower. Roman helped her out, his hand warm against hers. They rode the elevator in silence, the tension thick enough to cut. At the penthouse, Roman paused before heading to his office. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow we debrief with Victoria. She'll want to know every detail of tonight. Roman, Lena said as he turned away. Yes? Thank you for defending me, for believing in me. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. You're the one who defended both of us tonight. I should be thanking you. He disappeared into his office, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts and the dangerous realization that she was starting to care about Roman Vale as more than just an employer. And in his world, caring was the most dangerous thing of all. The next morning, Victoria's debriefing was brutal. She made Lena recount every conversation, every gesture, every micro-expression. When Lena told her about the confrontation with Senator Graves, Victoria actually smiled. Good, she said. You showed backbone. People respect that. But Roman's right. You need to choose your battles carefully. Not every insult requires a public response. How am I supposed to know which ones do? You learn to read the room, to calculate whether the risk of confrontation outweighs the cost of silence. Victoria paced, her heels clicking against the marble. In Roman's world, reputation is currency. Every interaction either adds to your value or diminishes it. You need to understand when to fight and when to smile and plot your revenge quietly. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's also power. Victoria stopped, looking at Lena with something almost like respect. You're learning faster than I expected. Most people in your position would have crumbled under Graves' attack. You didn't. That's valuable. Over the next 3 weeks, Lena attended 6 more events with Roman. Gallery openings, business dinners, a fundraiser for a children's hospital. Each one reinforced the narrative. Roman Vale and his mysterious companion, the crime king, and the girl who'd captured his attention. The press ate it up. Tabloids speculated about Lena's background, spinning elaborate stories that had nothing to do with reality. Social media exploded with theories and commentary. They're calling you the Queen of Shadows, Marcus the stylist told her one afternoon, showing her his phone. People are obsessed with the idea of you taming the untamable Roman Vale. Lena scrolled through the comments, feeling strange and disconnected. These people didn't know her. They'd created a fantasy version of Lena Hart, projecting their own desires onto a relationship that was supposed to be fake. Except it was starting to feel less fake every day. Roman had begun spending more time with her outside of events. They'd have dinner together, talking about everything from politics to philosophy, to the books they'd both loved as children. He showed her parts of himself he kept hidden from everyone else. The man who'd built an empire from nothing, the boy who'd lost his brother and learned to survive alone. And Lena found herself sharing things she'd never told anyone. About her mother's slow death, the guilt she carried for not being able to save her, the dreams she'd buried under the weight of survival. You still could, Roman said one night as they sat on the terrace, the city glittering below. Become a teacher. After this is over, you'll have the money to go back to school. Maybe, Lena said, though the idea felt distant now, like a life that belonged to someone else. What about you? What will you do when this arrangement ends? Roman was quiet for a long moment. Find someone else, I suppose. Someone to fill the role you've been playing. The words shouldn't have hurt. This was always temporary. But Lena felt them like a knife between her ribs. Right, she said softly. Of course. Roman looked at her, his expression unreadable. Lena! Whatever he was going to say was cut off by his phone buzzing. He glanced at it and his entire demeanor changed, tension snapping into place like armor. I have to take this, he said, standing abruptly. It's important. He disappeared into his office, leaving Lena alone with the city and the growing certainty that she was falling for a man she could never really have. Inside his office, Roman answered the call. Talk, he said. We have a problem. The voice on the other end was tight with tension. Victor, Roman's head of security. Dmitry Volkov is making moves. He's been asking questions about your new girlfriend. Roman's blood ran cold. Dmitry Volkov, Natasha's father, one of the most dangerous men in the Russian Bratva, a rival Roman had been carefully avoiding for years. What kind of questions? Her background, her family, her vulnerabilities. Victor paused. He knows she's important to you, and he's looking for leverage. Roman closed his eyes, fury and fear warring in his chest. This was exactly what he'd been afraid of. The moment Lena became visible, she became a target. Double her security, Roman said. I want eyes on her 24/7, and find out what Dmitry's planning. I need to know his next move before he makes it. Already on it. But boss, maybe you should end this. Send her away before— No. The word came out harder than Roman intended. She stays, just keep her safe. And even if keeping her close is what puts her in danger? Roman didn't answer, because Victor was right. The safest thing would be to end the arrangement, pay Lena off, send her back to her quiet life. But Roman couldn't, because somewhere in the past month, Lena had stopped being a strategy and started being something he couldn't afford to lose. He hung up and sat in the darkness of his office, wrestling with the impossible choice: protect Lena by pushing her away, or keep her close and risk everything to defend her. The answer should have been obvious, but Roman was starting to realize that when it came to Lena Hart, nothing was obvious anymore. The next morning, Lena noticed the changes immediately. More security in the building, a second bodyguard who shadowed her whenever she left the penthouse. Roman was quieter, more tense, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. What's wrong? She asked over breakfast. Nothing you need to worry about. Don't do that. Don't shut me out. Lena set down her coffee. If there's danger, I deserve to know. Roman studied her for a long moment, then made a decision. There's a man named Dmitry Volkov. He's a rival, someone I've managed to avoid direct conflict with for years. He's become interested in you. Interested how? The dangerous kind. He sees you as leverage against me. As long as you're by my side, you're a target. Roman's voice was steady, but Lena heard the tension beneath. I've increased your security. You'll be safe. For how long? 6 months? A year? What happens when this arrangement ends and I don't have your protection anymore? You'll be gone. Out of the city. Out of his reach. I'll make sure of it. So I'm just supposed to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder? Lena's voice rose. That's not freedom, Roman. That's another kind of prison. It's better than the alternative. Roman stood, pacing. You don't understand what these people are capable of. Dmitry doesn't make threats. He acts. If he decides you're worth taking, he'll do it without hesitation. Fear prickled down Lena's spine, but she forced herself to stay calm. Then we make sure he doesn't see me as worth taking. We double down on the narrative that I'm just a temporary companion, someone you'll discard when you get bored. No. Roman's voice was flat, absolute. That makes you vulnerable in a different way. If people think you're disposable, they'll have no reason not to hurt you. Then what do you suggest? Roman turned to face her, his expression torn between protection and possession. I suggest you trust me to handle this. Stay close, stay alert, and let my people keep you safe. Your people aren't the only ones who can protect me, Lena said quietly. Teach me. Teach me how to survive in your world without you. Why? Because in 4 months this ends. and I need to be able to stand on my own when it does. The truth of her words hung heavy between them. This was always temporary. No matter how real it was starting to feel, they both knew how it ended. Roman crossed the room, stopping inches from her. You want to learn? Fine, but understand something first. Once you step fully into my world, there's no going back to who you were before. This changes you. It changed me. It'll change you too. I'm not afraid of change, Lena said, though her heart was racing. I'm afraid of being helpless. Then we start tonight. Roman's eyes were dark, intense. No more pretending at Gallus. I'm going to show you the real foundation of my empire, the part that never makes it into business journals. Why? Because if you're going to be targeted anyway, you might as well understand exactly what you're caught up in. And because, he paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face, because I'm tired of lying to you about who I am. That night, Roman took Lena to a place she'd never been, the underground of his empire. They drove to a warehouse in Red Hook, the kind of building that looked abandoned from the outside. But inside, it was a hive of activity. Men and women moved with purpose, handling shipments, managing logistics, speaking in codes Lena didn't understand. This is the backbone, Roman said quietly as they walked through. Legitimate imports and exports, all properly documented. But it's also how I maintain relationships with people who operate in gray areas. I don't deal in drugs or weapons, but I facilitate connections for people who do, and I take a percentage. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. I'm not a crime lord in the traditional sense. I don't run gangs or order hits, but I enable the people who do, and I profit from it. That makes me complicit. Lena absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man who defended her at Gallus with the one who admitted to profiting from violence. Does it bother you? Roman asked. Knowing what I really am? Lena considered lying, considered the easy answer. But she'd asked for truth, and she owed him the same. It should, she admitted, but I grew up around people who were desperate enough to do terrible things to survive. I don't judge them for it. I'm not sure I can judge you either. Roman's expression shifted. Surprise, relief, something darker. You're too understanding. It's dangerous. Or maybe I just see you more clearly than you see yourself. Lena met his eyes. You talk about your brother like his belief in redemption was a weakness, but here you are, trying to legitimize your empire, trying to be more than what people assume you are. That's his influence. That's redemption. Redemption doesn't change what I've done. No, but it changes what you do next. They stood in that warehouse surrounded by the machinery of Roman's empire, and something fundamental shifted between them. This wasn't performance anymore. This was two people seeing each other fully, darkness and light, and choosing not to look away. Roman reached out, his hand cupping Lena's face with surprising gentleness. You shouldn't care about me, he said quietly. This was supposed to be business. I know, Lena whispered, but I'm not very good at following rules. Neither am I. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was possession and need, and all the things they'd been denying for weeks crashing together. Lena kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Roman rested his forehead against hers. This complicates everything, he said. I know. We should stop. Go back to the arrangement. Keep it professional. We should, Lena agreed. Neither of them moved. Lena, Roman said, his voice rough. If we do this, if we make this real, there's no going back. You'll be mine, and I'll be yours, and that makes you a permanent target. Every enemy I have will come after you to get to me. Then we make sure they fail. Lena's voice was steady, certain. I'm not running, Roman. Not from you, not from your world, not from whatever comes next. Roman searched her eyes, looking for doubt, for hesitation. He found none. You're sure? Yes. He kissed her again, softer this time, like a promise, like a claim, like the beginning of something that would either save them both or destroy them completely. They left the warehouse hand in hand, crossing a line they could never uncross. And neither of them noticed the car parked across the street, the telephoto lens capturing every moment. By morning, the photos would be on Dmitry Volkov's desk, and the real war would begin. The next week passed in a blur of heightened security and stolen moments. Roman and Lena stopped pretending the attraction between them was fake. In public, they were the perfect couple. Attentive, affectionate, believable. In private, they were something more complicated, but two people navigating the dangerous waters between want and wisdom. But the peace didn't last. Roman was in a meeting when Victor burst in, his face tight with tension. "We have a situation," he said, sliding a folder across the conference table. Roman opened it. Inside were photos. Him and Lena at the warehouse, kissing, touching, looking at each other with unmistakable intimacy. "Where did you get these?" Roman's voice was deadly quiet. "They were delivered to 3 major tabloids this morning. Someone's trying to prove your relationship is real, which means someone wants to use her against you." Victor's jaw was tight. "Dmitri?" "Probably, but it could be anyone." Roman's mind raced through possibilities, threats, countermoves. Have the tabloids published them? "Not yet. They're waiting to verify the story, but it's only a matter of time." Roman closed the folder, his expression cold and controlled. But inside, fury burned. Someone had violated Lena's privacy, turned their private moment into ammunition. "Double her security again," Roman said, "and find out who took these photos. I want a name by tonight." "Already working on it. But, boss..." Victor hesitated. "Maybe it's time to consider moving her. Getting her out of the city until this blows over. No, she stays where I can protect her. With respect, keeping her close is what's putting her in danger." Roman's fist slammed down on the table. "She stays." Victor nodded, recognizing when to stop pushing. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Roman sat alone in the conference room, staring at the photos. Lena's face in that moment, open, trusting, happy. He'd given her that. And now someone was trying to weaponize it. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me," he said when the line connected. "I need information on Dmitry Volkov's current operations. Everything. I don't care what it costs." He would protect Lena, whatever it took, even if it meant starting a war. At the penthouse, Lena was oblivious to the storm gathering. She was reviewing notes for an upcoming charity event when Roman arrived home earlier than expected. One look at his face told her something was wrong. "What happened?" Roman handed her the folder without a word. Lena opened it, her face going pale as she saw the photos. "How did they get these?" "Someone followed us. Someone who wants to prove you matter to me." Roman's voice was tight with controlled fury. "The photos haven't been published yet, but they will be." "Maybe that's good," Lena said slowly. "If people think we're really together, it strengthens the narrative. It also makes you a confirmed target. Before, there was plausible deniability. Now there's proof that I care about you. That changes everything." Lena set down the folder, her hands shaking slightly. "So what do we do?" "We prepare for war." Roman's eyes were hard, determined. "Because that's what's coming." War came faster than either of them expected. The photos hit the tabloids 72 hours later, splashed across front pages with headlines that screamed variations of the same theme: Crime King's Secret Love and Roman Veil's Mystery Woman Revealed. Within hours, the story had spread across social media, news sites, gossip blogs. Lena's face was everywhere, analyzed and dissected by millions of strangers. Her phone exploded with notifications. Friend requests from people she'd never met. Messages from distant relatives who'd ignored her when she was drowning in debt. Reporters camped outside the Apex Tower, cameras ready, questions shouted at anyone entering or leaving the building. Lena stood at the penthouse windows, watching the circus below, feeling like she was living in someone else's nightmare. "They found my old apartment," she said quietly. Roman stood behind her, his presence solid and furious. "My landlord called. Said reporters are harassing the other tenants, asking questions about me." "I'll handle it." Roman's voice was tight. "Victor's team is already working on damage control." "Damage control?" Lena laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Is that what I am now? Damage?" Roman turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders despite the steel in his eyes. "You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. The damage is what I'm going to do to whoever's behind this." "You think it's Dmitry Volkov?" I know it is. Victor traced the photos back to a freelance photographer with ties to the Bratva. Dmitri wanted proof were real, and now he has it. Roman's jaw tightened, which means he's planning his next move. Fear skittered down Lena's spine, cold and sharp. What kind of move? That's what I'm trying to find out. But until I do, you don't leave this building without a full security detail. No exceptions. Roman, I can't live in a cage. You can, and you will. His tone left no room for argument. I won't lose you because you were too stubborn to accept protection. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. I won't lose you. Not as part of a business arrangement, as something far more personal. Lena touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. I'm not going anywhere. Promise me. Roman's eyes were dark, intense. Promise me you'll be careful. That you'll trust my security team. That you won't take unnecessary risks. I promise. He kissed her then, fierce and claiming, like he was trying to brand the promise into her skin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Roman rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to end this, he said quietly. Whatever it takes. Lena believed him, and that scared her almost as much as Dmitri Volkov. The next morning, Roman called a meeting with his key people. Lena wasn't invited, but she heard enough through the closed office door to piece together the situation. Dmitri had been making moves, consolidating power, reaching out to Roman's allies with offers of partnership that sounded more like threats. The Bratva wanted a foothold in Manhattan's legitimate business sector, and they saw Roman's empire as the perfect entry point. He's using Lena as leverage, Victor's voice carried through the door. He wants you to know she's vulnerable, that he can get to her anytime he wants. Then we make sure he can't. Roman's voice was cold, controlled. I want surveillance on all of Dmitri's known locations. I want to know every person he talks to, every move he makes, and I want options for how to neutralize him if it comes to that. Lena's blood ran cold. Neutralize. The word was clinical, but its meaning was clear. She stepped away from the door, her mind racing. This was escalating beyond public relations and reputation management. This was heading toward violence, toward the kind of darkness Roman had spent years trying to leave behind. And it was her fault. If she'd never agreed to this arrangement, if she'd stayed invisible, none of this would be happening. Roman wouldn't be planning war with the Russian Bratva. He wouldn't be risking everything he'd built. The office door opened. Roman emerged, his expression softening slightly when he saw her. You were listening, he said. Not an accusation, just a statement. I was worried. Lena met his eyes. Roman, maybe we should end this. Tell people we broke up. Remove the target from my back. That won't work. Dmitri knows the relationship is real now. Ending it publicly won't change that. Then send me away. Get me out of the city like Victor suggested. No. Roman's voice was absolute. Running won't protect you. It'll just make you an easier target. The only way to keep you safe is to end the threat entirely. By going to war with Dmitri Volkov. If necessary, yes. Lena felt something break inside her chest. I don't want you to become a monster because of me. Roman's expression shifted, something painful flickering across his face. He closed the distance between them, his hands framing her face with surprising gentleness. I've always been a monster, Lena. I've just been very good at hiding it beneath expensive suits and charitable donations. But the truth is, I built this empire on fear and violence and calculated cruelty. Meeting you didn't change that. It just gave me something worth protecting beyond my own power. That's not true. You're more than... Don't. Roman's thumb brushed across her lips, silencing her. Don't make me into something I'm not. I care about you. More than I should. More than is safe for either of us. But caring about you doesn't erase what I am. It just means I'll be a monster with a purpose. The words should have terrified her. Instead, Lena felt something else entirely. A fierce, protective certainty that she'd stand beside this man no matter what darkness came. Then I'll be a monster too, she said quietly. Whatever it takes to survive this. Roman's eyes darkened. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. You taught me to fight instead of just endure, so that's what I'm going to do. Something shifted in Roman's expression. Pride and fear and possession all tangled together. You're going to destroy me, he said, almost to himself. Or save you, Lena replied. We'll find out which. Before Roman could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed, tension snapping into place like armor. What is it? Lena asked. Dmitri wants a meeting. Roman's voice was flat. Tomorrow night, neutral territory. He says it's time we discussed our mutual interests. It's a trap. Probably, but I can't ignore it. Refusing would be seen as weakness, and weakness invites attack. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Roman, if this is about me, I should be there. Besides, bringing me sends a message that you're not afraid of him, that I'm not some helpless pawn he can threaten. Roman stared at her for a long moment, clearly wrestling with the urge to lock her in the penthouse and handle this alone. You stay beside me the entire time, he said finally. You don't speak unless spoken to. And if anything goes wrong, you do exactly what Victor tells you. No arguments, no hesitation. Agreed? Agreed. The next evening, Lena dressed carefully. Nothing too flashy. Nothing that screamed wealth or vulnerability. Simple black dress, minimal jewelry, her hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Someone harder, more contained, ready for battle. Roman was waiting in the living room, flanked by Victor and two other security personnel Lena didn't know by name. He wore a dark suit that made him look every inch the crime king, dangerous and controlled. Last chance to change your mind, he said as she approached. Not a chance. They took two cars. Roman and Lena in the first, surrounded by bulletproof glass and Victor's steady presence. The security team followed in the second vehicle, close enough to respond to any threat. The meeting location was a private room in an upscale restaurant in Tribeca. Neutral territory, as promised, but Lena could feel the tension radiating off Roman as they entered. This was enemy ground, no matter how civilized it appeared. Dmitri Volkov was already there, seated at the head of a long table, like a king holding court. He was older than Lena expected, late 50s with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. Beside him sat Natasha, her expression smug and predatory. Roman, Dmitri said, his accent thick with Eastern European inflections. So good of you to accept my invitation, and you brought your lovely companion. How trusting. Dmitri. Roman's voice was neutral, giving nothing away. You said we had mutual interest to discuss. I'm listening. Direct. I appreciate that. Dmitri gestured to the chairs across from him. Please sit. Let's be civilized about this. Roman guided Lena to a seat, positioning himself between her and Dmitri. Victor stood behind them, a silent sentinel. Dmitri poured vodka into crystal glasses, sliding two across the table. A toast to new partnerships. We're not partners, Roman said flatly. Not yet, but we could be. Dmitri leaned back, studying Roman with predatory interest. You've built an impressive empire, Roman. Real estate, investments, legitimate holdings. But you're limited by your reputation. People still see you as a criminal, no matter how many charity galas you attend. Is there a point to this? The point is, I can help you. The Bratva has connections you can't access on your own. Politicians, judges, business leaders across Europe and Asia partner with me and doors will open that have been closed to you for years. And in return, 20% of your Manhattan holdings, access to your distribution networks. And Dmitri's gaze slid to Lena, cold and assessing. A demonstration of loyalty. A gesture that proves you're serious about this partnership. Lena's blood ran cold. She knew what he was asking without him saying it explicitly. Roman's hand found hers under the table, squeezing hard. Lena is not part of any negotiation. Everything is negotiable. Dmitri's smile was sharp. I'm not asking you to give her up. Just share. Let her spend some time with my organization. Get to know our operations. Think of it as an exchange program. The words were civilized, but the meaning was clear. Dmitri wanted to take Lena, use her as leverage, prove that Roman could be controlled through his attachments. That's not happening, Roman said, his voice deadly quiet. Then we have nothing to discuss. Dmitri's expression hardened. You came here hoping to negotiate a peaceful resolution. But peace requires compromise, Roman. You can't have everything you want and expect everyone else to simply accept it. I don't expect anything. I built what I have through strategy and strength. If you want a piece of it, you'll have to take it by force, and I promise you that won't end well for anyone." Natasha laughed, the sound sharp and mocking. "So brave, so protective. It's almost sweet, watching you play the hero for your little cleaning girl." Lena felt Roman tense beside her, violence coiling beneath his controlled exterior. She squeezed his hand back, a silent message. "Stay calm." "My relationship with Lena is none of your concern," Roman said. "It became our concern when you made it public," Dmitri replied. "When you turned a business arrangement into something real. Love makes men weak, Roman. It gives them vulnerabilities that can be exploited." "Or it gives them something worth fighting for," Lena said quietly. The room went silent. All eyes turned to her. Dmitri's expression shifted, something like interest flickering across his face. "The girl speaks. Tell me, Miss Hart, do you understand what you've gotten yourself into?" "Yes," Lena said, keeping her voice steady despite the fear hammering in her chest. "I understand that you see me as a weakness to exploit, that you think threatening me will force Roman to do what you want. But you're wrong. I'm not his weakness. I'm his reason to show you exactly what he's capable of." Dmitri studied her for a long moment, then laughed, a genuine sound that somehow made him more terrifying. "I see why you like her. She has spirit. It's a shame we couldn't come to an arrangement. I would have enjoyed breaking that spirit." Roman stood in one fluid motion, his entire presence radiating controlled violence. "This meeting is over." "Is it?" Dmitri remained seated, unruffled. "You walk out of here and you declare war. Are you prepared for that? Are you ready to watch everything you've built burn because you couldn't compromise?" "I've rebuilt from ashes before," Roman said coldly. "Have you?" The threat hung in the air, sharp and unmistakable. Dmitri's smile faded. "You'll regret this choice." "Probably, but I'll regret compromising with you more." Roman took Lena's hand, helping her to her feet. They walked toward the exit, Victor and the security team forming a protective barrier around them. "Roman," Dmitri called out just before they reached the door, "when I take something from you, and I will, remember that I gave you a chance to avoid this." Roman didn't respond. He simply kept walking, guiding Lena out of the restaurant and into the waiting car. The ride back to the Apex Tower was silent, tension thick enough to choke on. Lena could feel Roman's fury radiating off him in waves, controlled but barely contained. When they finally reached the penthouse, Roman paced like a caged predator, his hands clenched into fists. "I should have killed him," he said, his voice rough. "Right there in that restaurant. I should have ended this before it could escalate." "And gotten yourself arrested for murder?" That's exactly what he wanted. For you to lose control, make a mistake. "Then what do you suggest?" Roman spun to face her. "Because doing nothing isn't an option. Dmitri made his intentions clear. He's coming after you to hurt me." Lena's mind raced, trying to find a solution that didn't end in blood and destruction. "What if we give him what he wants?" "I'm not giving you to him. Not me. The appearance of cooperation. We let him think he's winning, that his pressure is working. Meanwhile, we gather information, find his vulnerabilities, and strike when he's not expecting it." Roman stared at her, surprise and something like admiration flickering across his face. "You're suggesting we play a long game, make him overconfident." "Exactly. You said it yourself. Fear and violence built your empire. But strategy is what sustains it. So let's be strategic. That requires risk. Dmitri would have to believe he's gaining ground, which means giving him small victories. I don't know if I can do that without it destroying me." Lena crossed the room, taking Roman's face in her hands. "Then we do it together. You taught me how to survive your world. Now let me help you navigate it." Roman closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. "I never wanted you to have to be this person. Strategic, calculating, willing to play these games. I never wanted to scrub floors for minimum wage while my mother died of cancer. But we don't always get to choose who we become. We just choose whether to survive it." Roman pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like she was the only solid thing in a world spinning out of control. "I love you," he said, the words rough and unpracticed. "I didn't mean to. This was supposed to be business. But somewhere between the performance and the reality, I fell in love with you." Lena's heart stuttered, emotion flooding through her so intensely it hurt. I love you too, which is why we're going to survive this, together. They stood there in the darkness of the penthouse, holding on to each other while war gathered on the horizon. The next 2 weeks were a careful dance of strategy and survival. Roman made small concessions to Dmitri, allowing Bratva representatives access to one of his smaller real estate portfolios, agreeing to a joint venture on a development project in Brooklyn. Each compromise was calculated, designed to make Dmitri believe he was gaining influence while actually revealing his operation's structure and vulnerabilities. Lena attended events at Roman's side, playing the role of devoted companion while listening carefully to conversations, noting which of Dmitri's allies seemed uncertain, which relationships were transactional rather than loyal. You're getting good at this, Victor told her one afternoon as they reviewed security footage from a recent gala. Reading people, identifying weak points. Roman's right to trust your instincts. I'm just trying to survive. No. Victor's expression was serious. You're trying to win. There's a difference. Survivors react. Winners anticipate. The words stayed with Lena, settling into her bones like truth. But despite their careful planning, despite Roman's best efforts to control the situation, the threat continued to escalate. Dmitri's people were everywhere, watching the building, following Lena's security detail, making their presence known in ways that were just shy of actionable. He's trying to wear us down, Roman said one night as they reviewed surveillance reports. Make us paranoid, make us slip up. Then we don't slip. Lena's voice was firm. We stay sharp, stay together, and wait for him to make the first real move. That move came 3 days later. Lena was in the penthouse gym, working through a self-defense routine Victor had been teaching her when the power went out. Emergency lighting kicked in after a moment, but something felt wrong. The air conditioning had stopped. The background hum of technology was absent. Victor? Lena called out, moving toward the door. He appeared immediately, his expression tense. Stay here. Don't move until I come back. What's happening? Someone cut the building's main power grid. Could be nothing. Could be... The explosion rocked the building. Not close, maybe 10 floors down, but loud enough to shake the walls and send Lena stumbling. Victor caught her, his hand steady on her arm. Go to the safe room, he said, his voice hard with command. Now! Code is your birthday backwards. Lock yourself in and don't come out until Roman or I personally clear you. Where's Roman? At the warehouse. He's on his way back. Go. Now. Lena ran. She'd been briefed on emergency protocols, knew exactly where the safe room was, hidden behind a false panel in Roman's office. She punched in the code with shaking hands, the panel sliding open to reveal a reinforced room with communications equipment and supplies. She sealed herself inside, her heart pounding, and immediately tried to call Roman. He answered on the first ring. Lena, are you safe? I'm in the safe room. Victor told me to lock down. What's happening? Dmitri's making his move. The explosion was a distraction. He has people in the building. Roman's voice was tight with controlled fury. I'm 10 minutes out. Victor and the team will protect you until I get there. Do not open that door for anyone except me or Victor. Do you understand? Yes, but Roman... Gunfire echoed through the phone, sharp and terrifying. Roman, Lena screamed. I'm fine. They're trying to slow me down. It won't work. His voice was deadly calm. Stay where you are. I'm coming for you. The line went dead. Lena sat in the safe room, surrounded by silence and fear, and realized with perfect clarity that this was always where they were headed. From the moment she'd agreed to Roman's arrangement, from the first time she'd stepped into his world, this confrontation had been inevitable. Dmitri wanted to break Roman by taking what he loved, and Roman would burn the world down before he let that happen. Minutes crawled by. Lena heard sounds through the reinforced walls. Shouts, more gunfire, what might have been Victor's voice giving orders. She wanted to help, to do something other than hide, but she'd promised Roman she'd stay safe. Then she heard footsteps outside the office. Slow, deliberate, wrong. Miss Hart, Dmitri's voice, muffled but unmistakable. I know you're in there. Your security team put up quite a fight, but they're indisposed now, which leaves just you and me. Lena's blood turned to ice. She looked at the communications panel, saw that the building's internal security system was still down. No way to call for help. Roman is on his way, she called out, proud when her voice didn't shake. He'll kill you for this. Dmitri laughed. Probably, but not before I take something from him. Open the door, Lena. Make this easy on yourself. No, I have explosives. I can breach that room in under a minute. Or you can walk out with dignity intact. Your choice. Lena's mind raced. If she stayed, he'd blast his way in and probably kill her in the process. If she surrendered, she might buy time for Roman to arrive. Neither option was good, but staying meant certain death. Surrendering meant a chance, however slim, at survival. She took a deep breath, steadied herself, and made her choice. I'm coming out, she said. Don't shoot. Smart girl. Lena opened the door. Dmitri stood in Roman's office, flanked by two armed men. He looked perfectly composed, like this was just another business meeting rather than a violent invasion. There we are, he said pleasantly. See? That wasn't so hard. What do you want? I want Roman Vale to understand that he doesn't get to refuse me, that his empire exists at my sufferance, and the best way to teach that lesson is through you. One of the men grabbed Lena's arm, his grip bruising. She forced herself not to struggle, not to give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. He'll destroy you for this, Lena said quietly. Perhaps. But first he'll suffer, and that's all I really need. They dragged her toward the elevator. Lena went without fighting, her mind already working through possibilities, escape routes, ways to survive until Roman arrived. Because he would arrive. Of that, she had no doubt. Roman Vale didn't lose the things he loved, and he loved her enough to tear the world apart to get her back. The elevator doors closed, carrying Lena down into darkness and uncertainty, while somewhere in the city, Roman raced toward her with murder in his heart and her name on his lips. The war had begun, and only one side would survive it. The warehouse was in Red Hook, the same one Roman had shown her weeks ago. Lena recognized it even through the black hood they'd forced over her head during the drive. She could smell the salt water, hear the distant sound of containers being moved at the port. They dragged her inside, her feet stumbling over concrete, and shoved her into a metal chair. When they ripped the hood off, Lena found herself in a bare room lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Dmitri stood in front of her, studying her like she was a specimen under glass. Comfortable? He asked. Lena didn't answer. Her wrists were zip-tied behind the chair, tight enough to cut circulation. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, to stay calm. Panic would get her killed. You're wondering if Roman will find you, Dmitri continued, circling her slowly. The answer is yes. I'm counting on it. This location isn't secret. I want him to come. Then why take me at all? Because I need him to understand what it feels like to be helpless, to know something precious is in danger and be unable to stop it. Dmitri stopped in front of her, his expression cold. Roman Vale has operated for years like he's untouchable, building his empire, making his deals, refusing partnerships with people he considers beneath him. It's time someone reminded him that he's just a man, and men can bleed. So can you, Lena said quietly. Dmitri's hand shot out, gripping her jaw hard enough to bruise. Brave words from a girl tied to a chair, but bravery won't save you. Only Roman can do that. And when he gets here, I'll give him a choice. His empire or your life. Let's see which one he values more. He released her, turning away. Natasha, watch her. I have preparations to make. Natasha emerged from the shadows, her expression gleeful and vicious. She pulled up a chair across from Lena, settling in like she was about to enjoy a show. I have to admit, Natasha said, I didn't think you'd last this long. When Roman first brought you to that gala, I assumed you'd be gone within a month. Another pretty distraction, forgotten, as soon as someone more interesting came along. Clearly you were wrong. Clearly? Natasha's smile was sharp. You know what's funny? Roman actually cares about you. I can see it. The great Roman Vale, who's never loved anything except power, brought down by a cleaning woman. It's almost poetic. You sound jealous. Jealous? Natasha laughed, but it was brittle. Of you? Please. I had Roman exactly where I wanted him once. He would have given me anything. Except what you actually wanted, Lena said, reading between the lines. He wouldn't let you into his world, wouldn't trust you. So you went to Dmitri instead, thinking you'd force Roman's hand. Natasha's expression darkened. You don't know anything about me. I know you're working with a man who sees you as a tool, not a partner. I know Dmitri will discard you the moment you're no longer useful, and I know that whatever you think you'll get out of this, it's not worth what it's costing you. At least I won't die in a warehouse tonight, Natasha shot back. Can you say the same? Before Lena could respond, her phone buzzed in Natasha's pocket, the one they'd taken from her when they grabbed her at the penthouse. Natasha pulled it out, her smile widening as she read the screen. It's Roman, she said, showing Lena the message. He wants proof you're alive. How sweet. She held up the phone, snapping a photo of Lena tied to the chair, bruised but defiant. Then she typed a response, her fingers moving quickly. There, Natasha said, hitting send. That should bring him running, and when he gets here, my father will finally put Roman Vale in his place. Lena said nothing. She was too busy calculating. Roman would come. She knew that with absolute certainty. But he wouldn't come alone, and he wouldn't come unprepared. Whatever Dmitri thought would happen, Roman had survived decades in this world by being smarter and more ruthless than his enemies. The question was whether Lena could survive long enough for Roman to reach her. Across the city, Roman stared at the photo on his phone, fury and fear warring in his chest. Lena looked small in that metal chair, her face pale, but her eyes still fierce, alive, hurt, but alive. I'm going to kill him, Roman said, his voice deadly quiet. I'm going to kill Dmitri Volkov and everyone who helped him touch her. Victor stood beside him in the war room of Roman's secondary location, a secured building that served as backup headquarters for exactly this kind of situation. Around them, Roman's core team assembled weapons, reviewed building layouts, prepared for assault. We've confirmed the location, Victor said, pulling up schematics on the main screen. Red Hook Warehouse, the one you showed Lena last month. Dimitri's using your own territory against you. How many men does he have? At least 15 inside, maybe more outside. It's fortified but not impenetrable. We can breach it. Casualties? On our side? Minimal if we do this right. On theirs? Victor's expression was grim. Total. Roman studied the schematics, his mind working through angles of attack, possible complications, acceptable losses. He'd built this empire by being willing to do what others wouldn't. Tonight, that willingness would be tested. I want Dmitri alive, Roman said. Everyone else is expendable. But I need him breathing long enough to understand what he's lost. And Natasha? Roman's jaw tightened. She made her choice. She lives with the consequences. Victor nodded, turning to the assembled team. Listen up. Primary objective is extracting Lena Hart unharmed. Secondary objective is neutralizing all hostile forces. Dmitri Volkov is to be taken alive if possible. Everyone else, you have authorization for lethal force. Questions? Silence. These were Roman's most trusted people, veterans of violence who'd proven their loyalty through blood and fire. We move in 20 minutes, Roman said. Dmitri wants me to come alone, walk into his trap like some desperate fool. Instead, we're going to show him what happens when you threaten something I love. The team dispersed to final preparations. Victor lingered, his expression troubled. Boss, you need to consider the possibility that this is exactly what Dmitri wants, that he's planned for you to bring a full assault team. I know, Roman said, but I don't have a choice. I'm not leaving her there. Even if it costs you everything? Roman met Victor's eyes, his gaze unflinching. Especially then. Because without her, everything else is worthless. Victor nodded slowly, understanding settling into his features. Then let's go get her back. At the warehouse, Lena had been alone for 30 minutes. Natasha had left to confer with her father, leaving Lena with 2 guards who stood by the door, silent and menacing. She'd been working on the zip ties since they'd left her alone, using a technique she'd seen in a self-defense video years ago, creating tension in her wrists when they bound her, then relaxing to create slack. It was slow, painful work. The plastic cut into her skin, drawing blood that made her hands slippery. But she kept working, because sitting here helpless wasn't an option. One of the guards' phones buzzed. He answered, listened, then nodded to his partner. Boss wants us upstairs. Reinforcements are here. What about her? She's not going anywhere. Leave her. They walked out, closing the door behind them. The moment they were gone, Lena worked faster, twisting her wrists, ignoring the pain. The zip tie stretched, millimeter by millimeter. Her hands were covered in blood now, slick and hot, but that helped. Made it easier to slip free. With a final wrench that sent agony shooting up her arms, her right hand came loose. Lena gasped, pulling her hands around front, her shoulders screaming from being held in one position too long. She fumbled with the zip ties around her ankles, her bloody fingers making the work difficult. But finally, she was free. She stood on shaking legs, looking around the room for anything she could use as a weapon. There was nothing. Just the chair, the single bulb, concrete walls. Then she noticed the air vent near the ceiling. It was small, maybe too small for her to fit through, but it was a chance. She dragged the chair beneath it, climbed up, and started working on the screws with her fingernails. They were rusted, old. One came loose, then another. She was working on the third when she heard it. Gunfire. Not close, but unmistakable. The assault had begun. Lena worked faster, her heart pounding. The third screw came free, then the fourth. The vent cover fell with a clang that seemed deafeningly loud. She pulled herself up, squeezing into the narrow space, her shoulders barely fitting. The ductwork was tight and dark and full of dust that made her want to cough. But Lena crawled forward anyway, following the sound of continued gunfire, trying to navigate toward safety. Outside the warehouse, Roman's team moved with military precision. They'd cut the exterior power, plunging the building into darkness except for emergency lighting. Flashbangs went off in sequence, disorienting Dimitri's men. Victor led one team through the east entrance while Roman took another group through the west. The gunfight was brutal and efficient. Dimitri's men were skilled, but they weren't prepared for the coordinated assault. Roman's people moved like shadows, taking positions, eliminating threats. Roman himself was a force of controlled violence, moving through the warehouse with singular purpose. He'd left his expensive suits behind, wearing tactical gear and carrying weapons he'd thought he'd left in his past. But tonight, he was the man he'd been before the Empire, before the legitimacy. Tonight, he was the monster who'd built everything from nothing. "Second floor clear," Victor's voice came through the comms. "No sign of the target." "Keep looking," Roman commanded, moving down a corridor lined with storage rooms. "She's here!" Dimitri wouldn't risk moving her. He kicked open a door, found it empty. Then another. On the third try, he found the room where Lena had been held. Chair in the center, zip ties on the floor stained with blood, and no Lena. Roman's heart stopped. The blood. Too much blood. "Victor, I found where they were keeping her. She's gone. There's blood." "Could be she escaped," Victor said, his voice tight. "Boss, we've got movement on the third floor. Dimitri and 3 men heading to the roof. He's trying to extract. Cut him off. I'm going after Lena." Roman ran back into the corridor, his mind racing through possibilities. If Lena had escaped, where would she go? She didn't know the building layout, didn't know which way led to safety. Then he saw it. The vent cover on the floor, screws scattered around it. Smart girl. "She's in the ductwork," Roman said into his comms. "I need building schematics now. Where do these vents lead?" A moment of silence, then one of his tech team responded. "Multiple exits, central HVAC room on the ground floor, or external vents on the roof." "She'd go toward sound," Roman said, thinking like Lena would think. "She'd follow the gunfire, try to find us, which means ground floor." He ran, racing through the warehouse toward the HVAC room. Behind him, he heard Victor engaging Dimitri's remaining forces on the upper floors. The building echoed with violence. In the ductwork, Lena had reached a junction. She could hear voices below, some in Russian, some in English, all tense with combat. She didn't know which direction to go, couldn't tell friend from enemy just from sound. Then she heard it. Roman's voice, distant but unmistakable. "Lena, if you can hear me, I'm in the HVAC room, ground floor, east side. Follow my voice." Relief flooded through her so intensely she almost cried. She crawled toward the sound, her body aching, her hands leaving bloody smears on the metal. The ductwork opened into a larger vertical shaft. Lena looked down, saw Roman's room below. Maybe 15 feet down, too far to jump safely. "Roman," she called out. His head snapped up, and their eyes met through the vent grate. The relief on his face was so profound it took her breath away. "Hold on," he said. "I'm getting you out." He climbed onto machinery, reaching up to remove the vent grate. His hands found hers, bloody and shaking. I'm going to pull you down. Trust me. Always, Lena said. He pulled, she dropped, and he caught her, his arms solid and sure. They hit the ground together, and for a moment Roman just held her, his face buried in her hair. You're alive, he breathed. You're alive. I told you I wouldn't go anywhere. Roman pulled back, his hands frantically checking her for injuries. The blood, just my wrists, from the zip ties. I'm okay. He looked at her torn skin, fury darkening his expression. Dmitri is going to pay for every mark on you. Roman, we need to... Gunfire erupted nearby, close enough to make them both flinch. Roman immediately moved Lena behind him, pulling his weapon. Victor, I have Lena. We're extracting now. But... Negative, Victor's voice came through the comms, tight with tension. Dmitri's men have blocked the east exit. We're pinned down on 3. You need to find another way out. Roman cursed, his mind working through the building layout. West exit, through the shipping bay. Can you hold them? We'll manage, just get her out of here. Roman took Lena's hand, pulling her toward the shipping bay. They moved quickly through corridors, avoiding the sounds of continued fighting. At the bay doors, Roman paused, checking for threats. Clear, he said. My car is 50 yards out. We run. We don't stop. Ready? Lena nodded, adrenaline sharpening her focus. They burst through the doors into the night. The car was exactly where Roman said it would be, engine running, driver waiting. They were 10 feet from safety when Dmitri emerged from the shadows. He looked disheveled, his expensive suit torn, blood on his face. But he held a gun, and it was pointed directly at Lena. I don't think so, Dmitri said, his accent thick with rage. You don't get to just take her and walk away. Roman moved instantly, positioning himself between Dmitri and Lena. His own weapon came up, aimed at Dmitri's head. It's over, Roman said, his voice deadly calm. Your men are dead or captured. Your plan failed. Put the gun down, and maybe you live through this. Maybe isn't good enough. Dmitri's hand was steady despite the chaos around him. You cost me everything tonight, Roman. My men, my reputation, my leverage. The only thing I have left is making sure you suffer for it. Shooting her makes you a dead man, Roman said. You know that. I'm already dead. The Bratva doesn't forgive failure, but at least I'll take something from you first. Time seemed to slow. Lena saw Dmitri's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Roman's body coil to move, knew with terrible clarity that someone was about to die. Then Victor appeared behind Dmitri, moving like a ghost, and put 2 bullets in the Russian's back. Dmitri fell, his gun clattering on the concrete. He hit the ground hard, blood pooling beneath him, but he was still alive, still conscious. Roman walked over, standing above him. I told you what would happen if you touched her. Dmitri laughed, blood bubbling at his lips. You think this ends it? The Bratva will come for you, for her. You've started a war you can't win. Then I'll burn them all down, Roman said simply. Every single one who threatens what's mine. He raised his weapon. Roman, Lena said quietly. Don't. He looked at her, surprise flickering across his face. He tried to kill you. I know, but if you kill him like this in cold blood, you become exactly what people think you are. The monster without redemption. Lena moved closer, her hand touching his arm. Let him face justice. The real kind. Let the world see that you chose mercy when you could have chosen revenge. Roman stared at her for a long moment, war raging behind his eyes. Then slowly, he lowered his weapon. Call an ambulance, he told Victor, and the police. Dmitri Volkov is going to spend the rest of his life in prison, knowing he failed. Victor made the call while Roman guided Lena to the car. She was shaking now, adrenaline fading and leaving exhaustion in its wake. You stopped me, Roman said as they settled into the back seat. Why? Because you're better than that, better than him. You've spent years trying to prove you're more than a criminal. Tonight, you get to actually be more. Roman pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like he'd never let go. You make me want to be better, even when being worse would be easier. That's not me, Lena said, her voice muffled against his chest. That's you. It's always been you. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Victor coordinated with the arriving authorities while Roman's team secured the scene. By the time the police arrived, it was clear what had happened. Dmitry Volkov had kidnapped Lena Hart, Roman had mounted a rescue operation, and Dmitry would be facing charges of kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder. The media would eat it up. The crime king saving his beloved from a rival's clutches. It was exactly the kind of redemption narrative Roman had been building toward. But as they drove back to the Apex Tower, Lena realized something had changed. This wasn't about narrative anymore. This wasn't about strategy or public perception. This was about two people who'd found each other in the darkness and refused to let go. At the penthouse, Roman tended to Lena's wounds with surprising gentleness. He cleaned the cuts on her wrists, bandaged them carefully, his hands steady despite the violence he'd just committed. "I thought I'd lost you," he said quietly. "When I saw that photo, when I found the blood in that room, I thought I was too late. You weren't. You were exactly on time. If you hadn't escaped, but I did, because you taught me to fight instead of just survive. You gave me the tools to save myself." Lena touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. "We saved each other tonight." Roman closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. "I killed 3 men tonight, maybe more. I don't even know the final count. They were trying to kill you, to kill us. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make me good." "No," Lena agreed. "But choosing mercy with Dmitry, when you could have killed him and everyone would have understood, that was good. That was you choosing to be better." Roman pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to humanity. And maybe she was. "I need to tell you something," Lena said after a long moment. "Something I found out a few days ago. I was going to wait to find the right time, but after tonight—" "What is it?" Lena took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "I'm pregnant, Roman. We're going to have a baby." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication and promise and fear. Roman went completely still. For a long moment he didn't react, didn't speak. Then slowly he pulled back to look at her face, his expression stunned. We're... "Yes." Lena's voice was soft. "I found out last week. I was trying to figure out how to tell you, and then Dmitry happened, and everything became chaos. But Roman, I'm carrying your child. Our child." Roman's hand moved to her stomach, settling there with reverence and terror. "You were pregnant when they took you. When Dmitry held a gun on you." "I'm okay. We're okay." But Roman was shaking now, the full weight of what could have happened crashing over him. "I could have lost you both. In that warehouse, if things had gone differently, if you hadn't escaped or if Dmitry had shot before Victor, but he didn't. We survived, all 3 of us." Lena covered his hand with hers. "And now we get to decide what comes next." Roman looked at her, this woman who'd walked into his world as a transaction and become his entire reason for existing. "I don't know how to be a father. I barely know how to be this, whatever we are." "We're a family," Lena said simply. "Messy and complicated and maybe not what either of us planned, but we're a family." Roman pulled her close again, his face buried in her hair, and Lena felt wetness against her neck. He was crying, silent tears for everything they'd almost lost, everything they'd found, everything they were about to become. "I love you," he said, his voice broken and honest. "I love you, and I love this child we're going to have. And I swear to you, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you're both safe, protected, loved." "I know," Lena whispered. "I know you will." They stayed like that for a long time, 2 people who'd survived impossible odds holding on to each other while the city glittered around them. Tomorrow would bring questions, consequences, the aftermath of the war they'd just fought. But tonight, they had survived. They had each other, and they had a future growing between them, tiny and fierce and full of impossible promise. Roman Vale, the King of Shadows, had finally found his light, and Lena Hart, who'd started as invisible, had become the center of an empire built not on fear, but on love. The morning after the warehouse came with silence instead of sirens. Lena woke in Roman's arms, sunlight streaming through the penthouse windows, and for a moment she forgot about the violence, the blood, the terror. Then she moved, and her wrists ached, bandages pulling tight, and it all came flooding back. Roman was already awake, watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "How long have you been staring at me?" she asked, her voice rough with sleep. "Hours." I couldn't stop. His hand moved to her face, tracing the bruise on her jaw that Dmitri had left. "Every time I close my eyes, I see that photo Natasha sent. You tied to that chair, hurt and alone. I wasn't alone. I knew you were coming. You shouldn't have had to know that. You should never have been in that position." Roman's expression was anguished. "This is my fault. My world. My enemies. Our world now," Lena interrupted, placing her hand over his. "Our enemies. Our fight. You don't get to carry this alone anymore." Roman closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. "The baby changes everything. We can't keep living like this, one crisis away from disaster. I need to end the threats permanently." "Roman, not through violence," he said quickly, reading her concern. "Through strategy. Dmitri's arrest is already making waves. The Bratva is fractured, their leadership questioning whether to retaliate or cut their losses. If I move carefully, I can use this moment to broker a permanent peace." "How?" "By giving them what they actually want. Not my empire, but access to legitimacy. The Bratva's been trying to transition from purely criminal operations to legal businesses for years. I can facilitate that, create partnerships that benefit both sides, make it more valuable for them to work with me than against me." Lena sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "You'd partner with the people who tried to kill us?" "With the organization, not the individuals. Dmitri acted alone, overstepped his authority. The Bratva leadership didn't sanction the kidnapping. If I approach them with a mutually beneficial proposal, position Dmitri as a rogue element, they'll accept the olive branch. That's cold. It's survival. And it protects you and our child better than a war of attrition." Roman's hand moved to her stomach, resting there with reverence. "I won't risk you again. Whatever it takes to build a safe world for our family, I'll do it." The doorbell chimed, an unexpected sound. Victor's voice came through the intercom. "Boss, we have visitors, FBI. They're requesting a conversation about last night." Roman and Lena exchanged glances. This was inevitable. The warehouse incident had been too public, too violent. The authorities would have questions. "Give us 10 minutes, Roman said. "Then send them up." They dressed quickly, Lena choosing clothes that covered her bandages, Roman slipping into his armor of expensive suits and controlled expressions. By the time the FBI agents entered the penthouse, they looked like what the world expected: a powerful businessman and his elegant companion, not two people who'd survived a war the night before. Agent Sarah Chen and Agent Marcus Wright were professionals, polite but thorough. They sat in Roman's living room, recording devices running, and asked their questions with careful precision. "Mr. Vale, can you walk us through the events of last night?" Chen asked. Roman did, his voice steady and factual. He described receiving proof that Lena had been taken, tracking her location, mounting a rescue with his security team. He didn't mention the bodies, the brutality, the moments where he'd been more executioner than businessman. "And you're claiming this was a legitimate rescue operation, not a gang conflict?" Wright's tone was skeptical. "I'm claiming I rescued my partner from kidnappers, that I acted within my rights to protect someone I love from imminent danger. If you're questioning the legality of that, I suggest you speak with my attorneys." Chen's expression softened slightly as she turned to Lena. "Miss Hart, we need to hear your account. What happened from your perspective?" Lena told them everything, her voice stronger than she expected. The explosion, Dmitri's men breaking into the penthouse, being dragged to the warehouse. She showed them her wrists, the cuts still raw and angry. "They tied me to a chair," she said quietly. "Dmitri Volkov told me he was going to use me as leverage against Roman, that he'd make Roman choose between his empire and my life." "But you escaped before Mr. Vale arrived," Wright noted, checking his files. "Yes. I freed myself and hid in the ventilation system. Roman found me there." "And you witnessed the confrontation between Mr. Vale and Mr. Volkov?" "I witnessed Dmitri Volkov pointing a gun at me, at us, and I witnessed Roman's head of security shooting Volkov in defense of our lives." Lena met Chen's eyes steadily. "Roman didn't kill anyone in cold blood. He came for me, he saved me, and he chose mercy when he could have chosen revenge. If you're looking for a criminal, you already have him in custody. Chen and Wright exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. Miss Hart, are you aware that you're not obligated to protect Mr. Vale? Chen's voice was gentle. If you're under any duress, if you feel unsafe, we can help you. Lena almost laughed. After everything, they thought she was a victim of Roman's control. I'm not under duress, Agent Chen. I'm in love. There's a difference. She reached for Roman's hand, lacing their fingers together. Roman Vale is many things, but he's not my captor. He's my partner, and I choose to be here. The agents asked more questions, verified details, took statements. By the time they left 2 hours later, it was clear that while they suspected Roman's world was darker than his public image suggested, they couldn't prove anything actionable. Dmitri would face charges, Roman would walk free, the narrative would hold. After they left, Roman pulled Lena close, exhaustion and relief warring in his expression. You didn't have to defend me like that. Yes, I did. Because it was true. And because we're in this together now. Roman's phone buzzed with an incoming call. He glanced at the screen, his expression tightening. It's Alexei Morozov, he said, head of the Bratva's North American operations. Dmitri's superior. Answer it, Lena said. Let's end this. Roman answered on speaker, his voice neutral. Alexei? Roman. The voice that came through was heavily accented, older, measured. I believe we need to discuss recent events. I'm listening. Dmitri Volkov acted without authorization. His actions do not represent the will of our organization. We wish to extend our apologies for the harm caused to you and Miss Hart. Roman's expression was unreadable. Apologies don't erase what happened. No, but perhaps mutual benefit can move us past it. Alexei paused. You have something we want. Connections, legitimacy, access to markets we've been unable to penetrate. We have something you want, the assurance that no further action will be taken against you or your family. I propose a meeting, a real negotiation, not the farce Dmitri attempted. Lena watched Roman calculate, weighing options, considering angles. Under what terms? Roman asked. Neutral territory. Both of us, plus 2 advisors each. We discuss partnership possibilities. If we reach agreement, the conflict ends. If not, we part ways and establish clear boundaries going forward. And if I refuse the meeting entirely, then we remain in a state of uncertainty, neither war nor peace. I think we both prefer clarity. Roman looked at Lena, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. This was the path forward, the chance to build something stable. I'll meet with you, Roman said. But Miss Hart comes with me. She's part of any negotiations that affect our future. Silence on the other end. Then, agreed. I will send details within the hour. The call ended. Roman set down the phone, his expression thoughtful. This could be a trap, Lena said. It could be. But Alexei's smart enough to know that killing me now would bring down more heat than the Bratva can handle. The FBI is watching. The media is watching. If I disappear after that phone call, Alexei becomes the prime suspect. So we're actually doing this. Negotiating with the Russian Mafia. We're building peace with a powerful organization that operates in gray areas. It's not ideal, but it's better than perpetual war. Roman pulled her close, and it protects what matters most. The meeting was set for 3 days later, time Roman used to prepare meticulously. He consulted with attorneys, reviewed every angle, built contingency plans for contingencies. Lena, meanwhile, had her first prenatal appointment, Victor insisting on accompanying her with a full security detail. The doctor confirmed what Lena already knew. 8 weeks pregnant, healthy, everything progressing normally. She lay on the examination table, staring at the tiny flutter on the ultrasound screen that was her child, and felt the full weight of what they were fighting for. That's your baby, the doctor said, smiling. About the size of a raspberry right now. Heartbeat is strong. Lena's eyes filled with tears. This tiny life, this impossible future, depended on her and Roman finding a way through the darkness. When she returned to the penthouse, Roman was in his office, surrounded by documents. He looked up when she entered, and the vulnerability in his expression took her breath away. How did it go? He asked. Perfect. Healthy. Strong heartbeat. She handed him the ultrasound photo, watched his face transform as he looked at the grainy image. "That's our baby," he whispered, wonder in his voice. "That's our baby." Roman stood, crossing to her, pulling her into his arms. "I'm going to be a father. I don't know how to be a father." "Neither of us knows what we're doing," Lena said, "but we'll figure it out. Together." The morning of the meeting, Roman dressed with particular care. Dark suit, no tie, the balance between businessman and threat. Lena chose a fitted dress that didn't yet show her pregnancy, armor of her own. Victor drove them to the location Alexei had specified, a private dining room in an exclusive restaurant, the kind of place that catered to people who valued discretion above all else. Alexei Morozov was already there when they arrived, seated at the head of the table with two men flanking him. He was older than Dmitri, 60-something, with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen decades of violence and survived. "Roman," he said, standing to shake hands. "Miss Hart, thank you for coming." They sat across from each other, the table a neutral zone between them. "Let's dispense with pleasantries," Roman said. "You want something from me. I want assurance that my family will be safe from future attacks. Tell me how we make both of those things happen." Alexei smiled slightly, appreciating the directness. "You've built legitimate business channels that we lack. Real estate development, investment partnerships, political connections. We want access to those channels. In return, we offer protection, expansion opportunities in markets you currently can't reach, and most importantly, an end to hostilities." "You're asking me to launder your reputation," Roman said flatly. "We're asking you to partner with us in mutual growth. Our money is as good as anyone's, better even, because we're more motivated to see our investments succeed. And if I refuse, then we continue as we are. Occasional conflicts, wasted resources, uncertainty, neither of us benefits." Alexei leaned forward. "But if you accept, we both gain. Your empire expands, ours legitimizes, and the next generation inherits stability instead of war." The words hung heavy. Alexei knew about the baby, Lena realized. He'd done his research, understood exactly what leverage would work. "What are the specific terms?" Lena asked, her voice steady. Alexei turned his attention to her, respect flickering in his expression. 20% partnership in 3 of Roman's development projects, joint ventures in hospitality and commercial real estate, information sharing on opportunities that benefit both organizations, and a mutual non-aggression pact that extends to families and associates. "That's asking for a lot," Roman said, "and offering a lot in return. Peace, protection, access to capital and markets. Your child grows up in a world where the Bratva is an ally, not a threat." Roman was silent, calculating. Lena could see his mind working through implications, long-term consequences, acceptable risks. "I want additional terms," Roman said finally. "First, any individual who threatens my family faces immediate sanctions from both our organizations. Second, all financial dealings are documented and legal. I won't participate in anything that gives the FBI ammunition against either of us. Third, this agreement is renewable annually. Either party can withdraw with 6 months' notice if the partnership isn't working." Alexei considered, then nodded. "Acceptable. I have one additional term of my own. We want consultation rights on major decisions that affect shared interests. Not veto power, but the courtesy of being informed and heard." "Agreed," Roman said. "Do we have a deal?" Alexei extended his hand across the table. "We have a deal." They shook, and with that gesture, the war ended. Not with violence or victory, but with strategy and mutual benefit. It wasn't the ending Lena had imagined, but it was real and practical and safe. As they stood to leave, Alexei addressed Lena directly. "Miss Hart, I apologize for the fear Dmitri caused you. His actions were unacceptable and unauthorized. I hope this agreement proves that we're capable of honor, despite our reputation." "I hope so too," Lena said quietly. "Because if you're not, you'll find out exactly what Roman is capable of when someone threatens his family." It wasn't a threat exactly, just a statement of fact. But Alexei smiled, genuine amusement in his expression. "I believe you would be formidable enemies," he said. "I'm glad we're choosing to be allies instead." The drive back to the penthouse was quiet, both of them processing what had just happened. They'd negotiated peace with the Russian Bratva, built a partnership that would shape the next decade of Roman's empire, change the trajectory of their future. "Are you okay with this?" Roman asked as they rode the elevator up. "With what we just agreed to?" Lena considered. 6 months ago, I was scrubbing floors alone at midnight, drowning in debt, invisible to everyone. Now I'm negotiating with organized crime bosses and carrying the child of Manhattan's most dangerous businessmen. Nothing about this is what I expected. That's not an answer. "I'm okay with it," Lena said, meeting his eyes, "because we chose survival over pride, because we built peace instead of pursuing revenge, because our child will grow up safer than they would have in perpetual war." Roman pulled her close as the elevator doors opened. "I love you. I love how you see the world, how you make me want to be better while accepting who I actually am. I love you too. All of you, even the parts that terrify me." They spent the next months building the life they'd fought for. The Bratva partnership moved forward, carefully documented and legally structured. Roman's empire expanded into new territories while shedding its most questionable operations. The media narrative shifted from crime king to reformed businessman, each strategic move reinforcing the redemption arc. Lena's pregnancy progressed beautifully. She traded her training with Victoria for prenatal yoga and nursery planning. Roman became obsessively protective, hiring the best doctors, reading every book on parenting, preparing for fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to business. Dmitry Volkov was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Natasha disappeared, severing ties with both the Bratva and Roman's world, a ghost of what might have been if ambition hadn't consumed her. The 6-month anniversary of their arrangement came and went without acknowledgement. The contract that had brought them together was meaningless now, replaced by something far more binding: love, family, shared history forged in fire. 7 months into the pregnancy, Roman took Lena to the rooftop garden of the Apex Tower at sunset. The city sprawled below them, lights beginning to twinkle as day faded to night. "I have something for you," Roman said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Lena's heart kicked into a faster rhythm. "Roman, let me finish," he interrupted gently. "6 months ago, I hired you for a business arrangement. I thought I needed someone to humanize me, to make me look like more than a monster. But you did something I never expected. You saw me clearly, darkness and light, and you chose to stay anyway. You made me want to be worthy of that choice." He opened the box, revealing a ring that took Lena's breath away. Not ostentatious, but beautiful in its simplicity. A single diamond set in platinum, elegant and timeless. "Lena Hart, will you marry me? Not as part of a contract or a strategy, but because I love you more than I knew it was possible to love anyone. Because I want to spend the rest of my life being the man you see when you look at me." Tears streamed down Lena's face. Yes, of course, yes, of course." Roman slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close and kissed her as the sun set over Manhattan. Below them, the city that had been their battlefield transformed into a landscape of possibility. 2 months later, Lena went into labor at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Roman, who'd faced down mobsters and FBI agents without flinching, nearly passed out when her water broke. "Breathe," Lena told him, laughing despite the contractions. "You need to breathe." "I'm breathing. I'm fine. We need to go. Hospital. Now." Victor drove them through empty streets while Roman held Lena's hand, his face pale with fear and wonder. At the hospital, they were ushered into a private suite, the best that money could buy. The labor was long and difficult. 14 hours of pain and exhaustion, Roman never leaving her side, whispering encouragement and love and promises of everything they'd build together. Finally, as dawn broke over the city, their daughter entered the world. She was tiny and perfect, with Roman's dark hair and Lena's fierce expression. The doctor placed her on Lena's chest, and both parents looked at their child with expressions of absolute wonder. "She's perfect," Lena whispered, tears streaming down her face. Roman touched his daughter's tiny hand, watched her fingers curl around his, and Lena saw something she'd never seen before. Roman Vale crying openly, unashamed, utterly undone by love. "What should we name her?" he asked, his voice broken with emotion. Lena had been thinking about this for months. Grace, because she's the Grace that saved us both. Grace Vale, Roman said, testing the name. It's perfect. They stayed like that for hours, the three of them cocooned in their hospital room while the city woke around them. Friends came to visit, Victor looking uncomfortable holding the baby but doing it anyway. Victoria, surprisingly soft as she admired Grace. Members of Roman's team, each offering congratulations and vows of protection. When they were finally alone again, Roman sat beside Lena's bed, Grace sleeping in his arms, and spoke quietly. A year ago, I thought I knew what power was. Control, fear, dominance. But this? He looked down at his daughter. This is power. This fragile life that depends on us completely. She's made me more vulnerable than any enemy ever could, and I've never felt stronger. That's what love does, Lena said softly. It breaks you open and rebuilds you into something better. Roman looked at her, this woman who'd walked into his life as a transaction and become his entire world. Do you ever regret it? Accepting my offer that morning after the storm? Lena considered. She thought about the fear, the danger, the moments where death had seemed inevitable. She thought about the woman she'd been. Invisible, drowning, surviving, but not living. No, she said finally, I don't regret a single moment, because it brought me here. To you, to her, to this life we've built. 6 months later, they married in a private ceremony in the penthouse, surrounded by people who'd become family. Nothing elaborate, nothing public. Just two people choosing each other, again and forever, with their daughter as witness to the vows. A year after that, Roman officially stepped back from the gray areas of his empire, focusing entirely on legitimate business. The Bratva partnership continued, but on Roman's terms with clear boundaries and legal frameworks. His reputation transformed completely, not the crime king anymore, but a philanthropist, a businessman, a devoted father. Lena finished her degree, funded by the money Roman had promised her a lifetime ago. She didn't become a teacher. Instead, she founded a nonprofit helping women escape debt and poverty, using her own story as proof that transformation was possible. Grace grew up surrounded by love and protection, never knowing how close she'd come to being born into war. She inherited her father's intensity and her mother's fierce heart, and both parents knew she'd be unstoppable. On Grace's 5th birthday, the family stood on the same rooftop garden where Roman had proposed. The city sprawled below them, transformed by years but fundamentally unchanged. Do you think she'll understand someday? Lena asked, watching Grace chase butterflies between the plants. What we went through to get here. Maybe, Roman said, his arm around her waist. Or maybe she'll just know that she's loved, that we'd do anything to protect her, that we built this world specifically so she could thrive in it. We did good, Lena said softly. We did better than good. We survived. We chose each other. We built a family from impossible circumstances. Roman turned her to face him. You know what the best part is? What? We're still here, still choosing each other, still building. This isn't the ending, Lena. This is just the beginning of everything we're going to create together. He was right. The scared cleaning woman and the dangerous crime king had transformed into something neither could have imagined. Partners, parents, people who'd found redemption not through erasure of the past, but through deliberate creation of the future. That night, after Grace was asleep, Roman and Lena stood at the windows overlooking Manhattan. The city glittered below them, full of stories like theirs. People finding each other in darkness, building light from nothing. Do you remember what you told me that first morning? Lena asked. In your kitchen, when you made me coffee? I told you a lot of things. You said caring about me didn't change what you were, that it just meant you'd be a monster with a purpose. Roman's expression softened. I remember. You were wrong, Lena said, turning to face him. Caring about me changed everything. It made you choose mercy over revenge, peace over war, love over power. You're not a monster anymore, Roman. You're just a man trying to be worthy of his family. Is that enough? It's more than enough. It's everything. They stood together in the penthouse that had been the beginning of their story, the place where a broke cleaning woman and a ruthless crime king had crossed paths during a storm and changed each other's lives forever. Outside, Manhattan continued its endless dance of light and shadow. But inside, Lena and Roman had found something rare and precious, a love forged in fire, tested by violence, and proven unbreakable by everything the world had thrown against it. Their story had started with a transaction and a storm. It had survived kidnapping, war, impossible odds, and it would continue, not as a fairy tale, but as something better, something real. Lena Hart had been invisible once, drowning in debt and desperation. Now she stood at the center of an empire, the heart of a family, the love of a man who would burn the world down to keep her safe. Roman Vale had been a monster once, feared and alone, building power from violence and control. Now he was a father, a husband, a man who'd learned that true strength came from choosing love over fear. Together they'd created something that couldn't be bought or threatened or destroyed. A family built not on dominance, but on devotion. Not on control, but on choice. And as they held each other in the quiet of the penthouse, with their daughter sleeping peacefully down the hall and the city sparkling below them, they both knew the same truth. This was home. This was family. This was the empire that truly mattered. The invisible girl and the king of shadows had become something neither had expected. Simply, beautifully, impossibly human. And that was the greatest victory of all.